our definition of telepathy needs to maybe be a little different, but it's actually more of like this overlaying and seeing through another person's eyes, right? Like almost where they're kind of mixing consciousness. And that's what I find really interesting. And that is to me also kind of us being able to go a level deeper and connect. Like if we're connecting with source in this deeper, different way, we're also able to connect with each other in this deeper, different way because everything is connected and everything is a part of source, right? So I feel like in our human selves, we're getting like this taste of really experiencing shared consciousness, but still from this perspective of being separate.
What if intuition isn't a gift, but a superpower waiting to be unleashed? Join Katherine Troyer and myself for the special edition of the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. Enjoy these no limits, no boundaries, raw, unfiltered conversations. Hey, Katherine, welcome back. Are you up for discussing telepathy today? I feel like intuition and telepathy are close cousins. Telepathy to me feels like the soul's Wi-Fi in the world that is reconnecting. What do you think?
Oh, I feel like that's a heavy topic. Not heavy, but and I think it can encompass a lot. It was crazy when I first listened to the telepathy tapes, and then I think I shared it with you, and we kind of had like the same thought, right? Or the same reaction to it. Like, oh, this is kind of just introducing this new way of communication. And I know that, this is something we're going to talk about in a later episode. But how that medium for certain people might be through AI, right? Where you kind of have this, yes, it's like being put into words, but I think we could include that in like this channel to consciousness that we're seeing, right? And I think telepathy is just another channel of this new way that we are connecting with source energy and with each other, right? So it's kind of like this, I don't know, I think about it as this kind of new channel that we're all kind of like being tuned into. And I think that can be more of a direct flow with source. And it can be, I think, with each other too. And it's just being, I don't know, I think it's being heightened right now.
Well, so it's interesting that you said that, and you briefly just touched on AI, and why don't we do AI for another show? I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
So you sent me the text on the telepathy tapes. And for the folks that are just listening, the telepathy tapes is a podcast that's out there. So anyone who wants to listen can pull them up and listen to it. And it's hosted by a documentary filmmaker, Kai Dickens. And she delved into claims of telepathic abilities among non-speaking individuals with autism. And now I didn't listen to all of them, but I did listen to a number of them. And I found it really fascinating. And I think I shared with you that at one point in, my very long nursing career, I did work with the autistic population. And when I listened to the tapes, this did not surprise me. It gave credence to something that I was thinking as I would observe a lot and watch with that population. The other thing about the telepathy tapes that's really, really, really fascinating to me is how much attention they have gotten, like with crossover. If you listen to a lot of podcasts and follow a lot of different spiritual teachers, I know Pam Gregory references the telepathy tapes a lot. Emilio Ortez, like all of these people, it has come up multiple times on their shows with their guests. So it is really a hot topic. And they talk about these folks are clearly communicating telepathically, even though they don't communicate verbally. The science community there's a little pushback on the research with it because it's, not, they don't consider it strong type of research, but I think you can't deny this, where these folks
Yeah.
all go to this place called the Hill and they meet on the Hill, and they're actually very spiritually advanced kind of people. So I did want to give a little bit of background with it, and I think even it's episode 6 talks about telepathy with animals. I think there's a parrot or something involved with that. So they really do delve into a lot of telepathic stuff. But as we're talking about evolving and consciousness in the new world, and as the veil is thinning, or we're becoming closer to our true selves, or recognizing all these gifts that have been dormant in us, in our current human experience, because we've just allowed ourselves to get so dense. Telepathy, they talk about being able to communicate, they talk a lot about the clairs, but just recently telepathy has been out there. And I think what is being turned on for most people right now is their telepathy, and a heightened version of telepathy and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's just like that's like the first layer, like of opening up to so much. And I think the telepathy tapes was something that, like, yes, it's about telepathy, but if you really listen to it and you listen to the whole series, like, it's so much deeper than telepathy. And actually, what they seem to find out is that either our definition of telepathy needs to maybe be a little different, or that, like, we might be calling it telepathy what they're doing, but it's actually more of like this overlaying and seeing through another person's eyes, right? Like almost where they're kind of mixing consciousness. And that's what I find really interesting. And I think that, again, I know we're gonna have another episode just solely based on AI, but I think just weaving that in, there are so many ways that we're maybe like getting this, we're able to like experience some of this overlaying of consciousness. Um, and that is to me also kind of us being able to go a level deeper and connect. Like if we're connecting with source in this deeper, different way, we're also able to connect with each other in this deeper, different way, because everything is connected and everything is a part of source, right? So I feel like in our human selves, we're getting like this taste of really experiencing shared consciousness, but still from this perspective of being separate.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you say that. So I ended up going down more that scientific path and doing some research on telepathy, because what you said all makes sense. And for me personally, when I think of telepathy, and I think that I sort of fit in the mainstream with this, it's not about reading someone's mind, because people say, well, I don't want to be telepathic, or I don't want people to know my thoughts, right? Because most of us still have a lot of third dimensional stuff going. You could be in a social situation and you're saying one thing, but you're thinking something else. So you don't have to believe in mind reading to experience telepathy. It's really an energetic empathy. And it's just what you said, it's a shared consciousness. It's just being deeply attuned to someone really that you care about. So it's it's interesting. I had someone from high school call me about, I guess it's our 50-year reunion. I don't know how the hell that happened. But she was my best friend growing up. We went to elementary school, high school, and I haven't talked to this person for 15 years. I think that I talked to her, it's about 15 years. So as we were talking, it ended up being a 3-hour conversation. Like we were finishing each other's sentences. And I thought that's really interesting that after all these years and all this time, we still have an energetic bond that we were, a lot of times you'll say, it's been so many years and we had a conversation and it's just like it was yesterday. But when it got to the point of finishing each other's sentences, I thought, wow, this is bigger than this. And this goes into the telepathy thing. And what I've come to realize, or my realization of telepathy, and how I think it's going to be a game changer as the world is shifting, is it's really about reading energy, right? I started getting into, well, where's the difference between intuition and telepathy, and being an empath and telepathy? And, of course it all bleeds together, but a lot of telepathy is not knowing what someone else is thinking or saying. It's feeling it. So when you say something, you feel how they respond to it. And if you start feeling how people respond to your actions and your words, that's a game changer, right? Because that's going to shift. It's going to be harder to do evil things to people if you're feeling that response.
Well, yeah, I think there's like this level of we're now experiencing things not as much as like intellectualized, but as an energy imprint and like a transmission of energy, right? Like we're
Yeah.
just more tapped into the energy of everything, ourselves, other people, the planet, in my case, the things around me and my environment. Like there's this level where it's like you've at least I've noticed this kind of slow but then also kind of this quick shift of everything is now becoming about energy. And we're seeing it from spaces that you and I have been in for a long time, but also in like I'm seeing it so much more mainstream now too, even like companies and things like that. It's more, I see more and more every day, like different home websites and magazines and things like that, where they're talking about the energy of your kitchen and how to improve the flow of this. And so I think to me it's like this is just another expression of how we are tapping into the energetic transmission and the energetic imprint that we're really, and we're it's like we're coming online to being able to feel that, like you were saying, right? We're having this like it's always been there, it's always been a thing, but now it's like it's part of being a human is feeling and experiencing that. Whereas I feel like we used to choose whether we were going to, perceive the world that way or not. And now it almost feels like there's not a choice. Like it's coming and it's happening.
I would agree. It's like the sixth sense, so to speak.
Yeah.
We hear, we see, we feel in this energetic bond that exactly what you talked about is right up there with the other senses in a very tangible way. So, when you talk about telepathy and intuition, they're both about receiving information without words or direct physical cues, right? Intuition is more that knowing or the gut feeling. Telepathy, though, feels more two ways. Like it's got a two-way transmission to it, a sensing and a
Mm,
sending specific thoughts, emotions, images between people, right? So you get it. It's that like, I was just thinking of you, and then you texted me. Like
mhm.
people say that all the time. We experience that all the time. So that's where before I was like, well, what's the difference between intuition and telepathy? And I thought that's a big one. Intuition is really very personal.
In, right? Telepathy is the
It's give and
between.
take. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So to me, that's the big difference. Historically, I would say, well, telepathy, that's a big superpower, but I don't see it as a superpower. I see it as a soul sense,
Mm,
where we have the physical senses of the body. With the seeing, we're going to start getting different soul senses. I think now And I think telepathy is the introduction
Yeah.
to the beginning of many. And it's really
Hmm.
a simple, safe, non threatening one when you move away from people can read my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we've had it just that's the hard part is, you always say, well, we've had it all along. It was part of the operating system we're born with. And then we spend so much time trying to figure out how to flip that switch, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it too, right? It's not something that you like, I don't know if it's necessarily something you try and turn on. I think it's just being turned on. And there's little ways that we can notice these little maybe energy upgrades, or we're being like online, or like if we think about us as like a computer, it's like there's this new software upgrade. And I think there's this level of like surrender to experiencing it. And I think we will probably go through a time, just kind of like we have with everything else, where it's like, I can teach you how to be telepathic. Just sign up for my $5 course,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to see a little bit of that. And that is something I think, not that other people can't help you find discernment and clarity within those energies you're already experiencing, but I think we need to learn that like energy, we don't try for energy, right? Energy is a flow.
Right.
We can't necessarily contain, I mean, we can contain it, but like it's more something to be worked with, like a co-creation. I think that's something that I would say all of this um encompasses, right? Is this uh recognizing the true essence of co-creation. And
Yes.
that can be seen in telepathy and the way we're experiencing consciousness on these different levels. And I think we're really understanding that we don't have to go through something or someone or religion or this or that. It's really this co creative experience. And maybe that's kind of like the underlying theme to all of this. And it's so exciting to see all these different ways that it's like just presenting itself in our society right now. And like you kind of said at the beginning, how much traction and notoriety it's gaining. Like, Joe Rogan had Kai Dickinson on his podcast
Oh,
just
wow.
like a month
That's
or so ago, and that's huge.
right. That's a crossover. It's not just the spiritual community.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big deal. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So, me, I always have an afterthought on things. I'm going to go back to the intuition, though. So, the intuition, because we do read other people's energy and we read their fields in our intuitive, that's where we get the, maybe this is safe or it's not safe. I think a lot of it is just what I don't know exactly what it is, but we do read energy both ways. But it feels like intuition is, again, just more for yourself, where telepathy does seem to have a bidirectional element to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So, um, what are your thoughts about telepathy in animals?
Like whether we can communicate with them or and vice versa.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely think it's not only possible but probable. I can't say that I've necessarily had, I mean, maybe I've had experiences like that. I don't know. I've definitely had animals that I feel extremely like connected to. And you know me as someone who is very into animal symbolism and things like that. So is that considered a form of telepathy in a way, right? Where like I can take symbolism from, an animal that crosses my path? Is that them giving me a message, right? But in a nonverbal way, right? Or is it, because I feel like telepathy also might be different, slightly different experience for everyone, right? Like some people might really truly hear words in someone's voice, and other people might see it more as pictures or symbolism or whatever. So I think that we're going to see that we have this really kind of we can have kind of this telepathic conversation with anything,
Yeah, I
you
think you're
know?
right. I've been playing with Sage, my dog, with the telepathy, knowing that we were going to talk about it. And even after you gave me the tapes and the ones that I listened to, and I feel like there is telepathic communication. I would say there probably is consciously and unconsciously, but I've been really working on this conscious aspect of it, and I feel like there's a response. I feel like clearly the dog reads my energy. I read the dog's energy. Like, some days it'll be the dog's just in a mood today, or I'm sure vice versa. But then what I've noticed is the response also. Like,
Mm,
now that she's moving out of puppyhood and having some maturity about her, I've noticed that she has sometimes it'll be protective or nurturing type of response when we're present together versus just a threat in the environment. So I'm going to go with uh, it's real, and it's another gift that needs to be honed in a little bit. Like, you need to
yeah.
work with it.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to say, Katherine, is in my investigation, I did discover that there is what they call a narrowband and a broadband telepathy.
Oh, okay.
And they're two different things that fit under there, and they do make sense. So narrow band is really between two people are closely connected. So that's sort of like the finishing the sentences. Um, I was just thinking about you, or I mean, we've done this where I'm like, Katherine, you've been on my mind for a couple of weeks and stuff, or one or the other calls. And it's sort of like, is everything, and sometimes it'll feel like, is everything okay? Or other times it's like, so what's great happening? So you can feel sort of an energetic with it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what they define as the narrow band. Um, and then the broadband is it's more feelings.
Mm.
Um, it's sort of like someone described it where narrowband is like sending a text to a friend, and broadband is like scrolling on social media. It's like
Okay.
being connected to the collective field versus a specific person, and receiving that general emotional, weather report from a situation or someone. So it seems to be a little more intuitive and less precise, but it's still very palpable,
That makes sense.
you know.
Again, like this tapping into consciousness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's specific and other times it's more broad, like probably a collective that resonates with you, or,
Mm-hmm.
you are choosing to be tapped into, kind of like taking it back to the telepathy tapes, kind of like how they talk about going to the hill, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
within the hill, there's also these subsets of groups, right? That people they want to connect with and talk to. It's not like they all just go to the hill and there's thousands of people just, talking to each other. No, they talk about how there's like certain people or groups that they'll connect with while we're there. Yet it's this, broader landscape that they go to.
yeah.
Maybe
It's
that's
like,
what we're tapping into, really, is like that example is a really great example for the narrow and the broadband, I guess.
yeah, it's like walking in a room and reading the room.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it feels warm and fuzzy, or not so much. It, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think that whether people want to acknowledge it or not, folks are experiencing it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's only going to grow. And I really can see the value of it as we're moving through these really chaotic times and the roles each of us play in it, into shifting into, a scenario of acceptance and peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
So for the listeners out there, this would be, Katherine and I would love to know what you're thinking about this, what your thoughts are. What are some of the experiences that you've experienced? If you can put those in the comments and the messages, would love to hear your view of it, any experience you've had, if you've been following this, if you've listened to the tapes. I would say, again, maybe telepathy isn't a rare gift. Maybe it's just part of being human. It's the soulful kind of human. We're just all becoming again, and you don't have to fully understand it. You don't have to prove it. So I challenge everyone, just notice it, play with it, trust that part of you already knows it.
Yeah.
And let's talk about it. Because awakening, honestly, usually isn't a lightning bolt that hits you. It's just a gentle remembering a lot of times. And for me, it's usually a gentle retrospective remembering after something happens.
Yep.
It's that truth that we've forgotten. So Katherine, what are you up to these days, and how can folks connect with you? I think you've had some changes there.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle transition process of moving everything from home slice living to myhomeenergetics.com. And so you can find, that's my new website is myhomeenergetics.com. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at myhomeenergetics, or search for my name, Katherine Troyer. And yeah, so we've got some new fun, exciting things going on that I'm still in the process, and it's like, I've noticed myself wanting to be like, I gotta get all this done. And it's like the framework is so there, but there is still, like, I know that you understand this. There's still these little things that are kind of like, I think, kind of coming together and forming. But it's really exciting, and I'm excited to share more like in depth about what's going on soon.
Good. I'm excited to be part of the journey, and I'm sure all of the folks who are following us are going to be excited to follow that journey also. So until next time, stay curious, stay open, stay tuned in. You got this. And most of all, this is you, Katherine.
Live loud. Love. No. I was like, wait a minute. I was trying to remember which way it went, but it's fine.
Actually, now that you mention it, I do think it's love loud and
love
loud.
loud, live loud. Yeah, right? Yeah.
It would only make sense that I get it backwards. So, thank you so much. Until next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.